Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Antonio Gomez. I work for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support based out of ISU. I'll be your moderator and technical support for today's webinar. So if you have any issues or needs, go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll help you out with that. Please hold all questions until the Q&A portion of the webinar or use the Q&A function in the chat to let us know your questions. Once we get to Q&A, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you to ask your question. This webinar will also be offering closed captioning for accessibility, so feel free to turn that on. We will also be recording this webinar. Our recording and all materials will be available within 2 business days on the Illinois Workforce Academy. So before we get started, I'm going to launch a couple of polls for us, and then I'm going to hand it off to Drew. So here are our polls. If you could take a second to answer them. Fantastic. I see a lot of responses. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share results. So we've got a lot of Title I folks. We've got a few Title II, Title III, not a lot of Title IV. Then we've got a couple of other workforce partners as well. And it looks as though we've got a pretty even distribution with a little bit more in Central Illinois. So thank you all for being here. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Drew to get us started.
Thank you, Antonio. And thank you all for joining us today. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Drew Thomason. I work for KEB. We're based out of Springfield, Illinois, and we support the workforce system in Illinois, specifically under WIOA, facilitating statewide planning as well as supporting local workforce areas with technical assistance. Today, I'm here on behalf of the state around statewide planning. The focus of our presentation today is going to be on the WIOA state plan modification process here in Illinois. We'll kind of give a little bit of background about what it is, why it's required, how it affects both state efforts as well as local workforce area efforts. And it's really intended to explain the framework, the decision-making process behind the modification, as well as beginning to highlight some of the emerging themes that we see that will be represented as part of that modification. So I want to spend just a little bit of time doing some level setting. Just real quick, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or you'll hear people call it WIOA. It's the primary federal statute that governs the workforce development systems in the states. It really emphasizes alignment across employment, education, and training systems. And it looks to do that broadly instead of isolated programs. You know, some of the key themes include employer engagement, career pathways, and inclusive access to services. I think an important consideration always when we're talking about WIOA is that it's not just about job seekers. It really places equal emphasis on job seekers as well as meeting the needs of employers. Every state's workforce system, including ours here in Illinois, operates within this statutory framework. So what is the state plan? It establishes the statewide vision, goals, and strategies for workforce development. It also serves as the foundation for local planning, service delivery models, partner coordination, both within WIOA world and with others that serve similar populations. The state plan is a compliance piece, but it's also an opportunity to go beyond compliance. You can kind of think of the state plan as the base of the WIOA pyramid. It's the foundation that regional economic development regions 4-year plans, local workforce areas 4-year plans, local MOUs around service delivery, and local budgets are built. They all must align with the direction that is set in the state plan. It is the guiding star. Our current state plan it started in 2024, and so it went into effect in 2024, but really we spent a year leading up to that. So it started with a retreat made of state leaders and key stakeholders in 2023, kicked off by Governor Pritzker to set the initial directions for the development of that plan. Input from our state workforce board was sought throughout that process. We also wanted to hear from employers, customers, and service delivery providers. So to do that, we had 13 in-person listening sessions across the state with at least one in each of the economic development regions. We had multiple in Cook County. We also provided 3 online listening sessions. All of that input went into developing that state plan. The draft plan was put up for public comment early in 2024. And then again, we took the public comments from that, rolled them into the plan, and submitted that to the U.S. Departments of Labor and Education, who accepted our plan. And the plan began in July 1st of 2024. So what's in our current state plan? Well, it established a vision for emphasizing program integration and really being responsive to customers. And when I say customers, again, I mean both individuals, those job seekers, as well as employers. The strategies were developed in a way to be intentionally cross-cutting and really requiring coordination across agencies, partners, and other stakeholders, instead of doing isolated initiatives for each of the individual programs under WIOA. And this is the foundation against which this modification is being developed. We want to ensure continuality with those vision and those strategies with targeted refinements. So why are we doing a modification? Well, first of all, it's a compliance piece. The federal law requires that states review and update their state plans at least every 2 years. And the intent is that to keep the state plans current, relevant, and responsive to any changes in the economic or workforce conditions from the time it was developed to this midpoint. So this isn't a discretionary exercise. We have to do this. But as I said earlier, for Illinois, both in the development of our initial plan and this modification, it's really an opportunity to reflect on what's worked, what hasn't, and what adjustments we need to make. The modification is a targeted update. It is not a complete rewrite of the 4-year plan. And it focuses on specific sections where changes are necessary due to changes in the workforce or labor market, or changes are beneficial to guiding our service delivery. So we're not going to reopen every item that went into the state plan or really reset the system from scratch. But at the same time, we want this to be meaningful. We want it to make sure that if we do shift anything, it's done in a way that aligns with our current realities. It's done with clarity, and it really improves on our previous plan. One way to think of it is it's a course correction, not a reinvention. So the state plan spans hundreds of pages. But generally, during the modification, we focus on specific sections. So we update performance measures to reflect progress or challenges. We do a new economic and labor market analysis to make sure that what we're basing kind of where our focus on reflects the current realities. We look at our partner roles and coordinations to see if there needs to be any clarification or refinement around those. and we look at our service delivery approaches and make sure that those are the right ones at the right time. Now I want to take a little bit of time and talk about what the modification process really looks like. So here in Illinois, we first do an internal assessment. So the program partners look at the state plan, review that against what they've been doing, what they've been seeing, again, what has been working, what maybe needs shifted a little bit, and begin to build a basis for a draft modification. We also, throughout this entire process, want to engage stakeholders. That can be employers, that could be job seekers, that could be service delivery providers, training providers, education institutions, to make sure that we're capturing any lessons that they've learned over the past 2 years and that the modification reflects their needs and where they are today. Based on that internal assessment, as well as that ongoing stakeholder engagement, a work group will draft the modification. We call those the worker bees. They will be the ones that are actually doing the changes to the text of the state plan for this modification. Once that has been completed, we will open up for a public comment period. During that time, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, the draft text will be released. We'll have another webinar to highlight the changes from the current state plan to the draft modification and offer the ability for anyone to offer any public feedback about that modification. That public comment period lasts about 30 days. The state team will review any comments received during that time, make any necessary changes to the modification, and then submit that to the U.S. Departments of Labor and Education. So that's a lot of background about the whys, some context, and how it's going to be done. I want to spend a decent amount of time now talking about what we're starting to see as emerging themes that will be reflected in the state plan. One caveat before I talk about these is that generally the U.S. Departments of Education and Labor issue guidance to states about specific areas or themes that they want to see as part of the modification. As part of a conversation earlier this week with leaders in both of those departments, they said that that guidance is coming soon, but they have not given a firm date on its issuance. That guidance will impact what Illinois must address. But so far, both from initial stakeholder engagement as well as just changes that we've seen over the past year, there are some emerging themes that will likely be addressed through this modification. Now, I kind of on your screen, you should see kind of three big buckets, and I want to talk about each one of those. So first is the coordination around new federal rules or programs that have come about since our state plan went into effect in 2024. So just like all other states around the country, Illinois is navigating a period of shift in federal policy. And I'll highlight two of those areas that we're looking at. So the first is around SNAP. There is a change to SNAP in which most recipients will now have some workforce requirements. We want to acknowledge that in this plan and look at how the workforce system can help those SNAP recipients meet those requirements. In addition to work requirements, one way individuals can meet that is through training, even if it's not a full-time employment. So we're exploring what does that look like. Another is Workforce Pell. These are new Pell grants that will go into effect in 26-27. And these are different than your traditional Pell Grants in that they will provide support to individuals for short-term programs. So both of these changes have new compliance responsibilities for those programs, but they also offer opportunities for us to better align the workforce, the education systems in the state, as well as those human service systems. Ideas for the modification include acknowledging the need for additional coordination across agencies. That way we can ensure consistent implementation, clear messaging at the local level at these new programs, and maybe supporting customers by aligning eligibility, referrals, and service pathways when possible, even if those extend beyond WIOA programs. We're really looking at this modification as a chance to strengthen existing partnerships and looking at how can strengthening those partnerships, again, better serve individuals who are eligible maybe for both programs outside of WIOA as well as WIOA services. The second area is around strengthening support for immigrants and migrants. Now, this was already called out in our current state plan, but we know that Illinois continues to see demographic and labor market impacts related to immigrants and migrants. And within this modification, we want to recognize the importance of ensuring that appropriate and allowable workforce services are accessible and compliant. Strengthening the support could include expanding existing partnerships, both within state government and outside, as well as aligning our strategies with employer demand. We think that this approach would support both economic integration for those individuals and build up talent pipelines for employers. The last area that I'm going to talk about with these emerging themes is artificial intelligence. I know that you can't really go to anything, any webinar or read any article about the workforce or labor markets or economy without addressing AI. We recognize that artificial intelligence is reshaping that labor market. It's reshaping job requirements, skill needs, hiring practices, and even application practices across all industries. We know that the workforce system will have a role in helping job seekers understand how AI affects occupation, skills, and career pathways. And we know that for employers, the system can support maybe adoption of by helping identify reskilling or upskilling strategies, rather than only focusing on what we're hearing a lot now in the media is displacement by AI. We're at the very beginning of this. So this is really building the systems that will allow us to respond, planning for planning. Emphasis will be on what does that look like for preparing workers, and what does that look like for supporting employers. We really want to spend the next 2 years better understanding AI's impact on the labor market and employers' needs, and what systems within our workforce system need to be in place so we can be responsive to that and support customers, again, both job seekers and employers, as they are working to navigate this transformation. Before I go any further, I wonder if there's any questions either on what I've talked about regarding the process for the modification, as well as those emerging themes. I'd also love to hear from you, either if you want to come on to the mic, or if you want to put it into the chat or the Q&A. What are those emerging themes that you're seeing? What do you think we as a state need to be aware of as we embark on this modification process?
If you want to raise your hand virtually, I can allow you to come off mute. You can ask your questions. Here I see one in the chat. Can you talk
Yeah,
more about the workforce Pell Grants for 2027?
yeah, certainly. So it's similar. We're taking a similar approach as I described to that AI, because we know those workforce Pell Grants are coming. The US Department of Education is still in the rulemaking process for those. So we know they will be available for the 26-27 academic year, but we're still waiting for those final agreed upon rules, so we can be more specific about it. So the language in the modification, again, is going to be looking at what partnerships, what lines of communication need to be in place. So once we know the final rules and regulations around those, we can move forward with coordination. And how do we ensure that the workforce system can provide services for those who are eligible, who receive those workforce Pell Grants? And what does that coordination look like between the partners under WIOA and those partners who will be providing training to those who receive the workforce Pell Grants? If there aren't any more questions, feel free to keep on putting those into the, okay, I see one more. Yeah, so this is feedback for any workforce program, AI, TDL, manufacturing, etc. Title II, that's adult education, reports credentials earned. We need advice on AI and industry recognized credentials. That's great feedback. I'm noting that down. Yeah, and that's, again, we're at the very beginning of this, our new AI world. So I know there are other groups out there that are looking at this, and we're going to be looking at them both, I think, within the state and maybe externally for what those would look like. But we will make note of that. That's a great point, Jonathan. Thank you. So right now, we will send this out with the materials following this, but we have a survey for stakeholders. And it's right now targeted to 3 groups. We're looking to employers. That's group 1. Group 2 is education and training providers. And group 3 are workforce service providers. We want to get your insight on some of these concepts and emerging themes that I've laid out today. And that data, again, will inform that modification. That survey link is on your screen. We will send that out. And I would ask, not only do you take it, but please circulate that within your networks. The more feedback we get, the better that data is that we're getting back. It's really does not take too long to complete. I'd say 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. And we're going to keep that open as we continue to draft this content. So we will pass that on to you. And we would just ask that If you haven't taken it already, that you take it, and please distribute it widely within your networks. The more feedback we have, the better. So I'm going to real quick. Yeah, I see that comment. I will drop that into the, let me drop that right now before we move on into the chat box. Oh, I put that. Antonio, I put that in the chat box, but it only went to the host and panelists. Could you put that link to everyone?
Yes. Sorry, it's not letting me copy for some. There we go.
Thank you.
Done.
There's that link. And like I said, we will send that out after this too. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what the timeline we are looking at. I think, again, this is a tentative timeline. This is based on what it has looked like, the modification process has looked like in past years. The official timeline will be driven by that guidance issued by the Department of Labor and Department of Education. So while we wait for that official guidance, this is the timeline on which we are operating. So that state work group has already met and done their review and is looking at feedback and starting to make changes, draft tentative changes as part of the modification. This process was introduced to the State Workforce Board in December. As I said earlier, we're looking at stakeholder feedback efforts throughout this process. Today is one of those opportunities. The survey is another. Public comment period, which is on this chart, is another, with an additional webinar in the future too. We're going to continue to provide updates to our workforce board, use them as a sounding board and to provide their feedback and guidance. That public comment is tentative right now to run from January 15th through February 15th. That date, we are going to have a webinar January 16th to kick off that public comment and to provide updates. Once we receive all of the feedback from that public comment, we will take that feedback, roll it into the draft modification, do final checks around grammar, spelling, all of those things. And then our last date to submit to the Department of Labor is March 15th. Once the Department of Labor has reviewed the plan, they might ask for a few changes, but typically the plan, this modified plan, will then go into effect July 1 of 2026. That's my presentation for today. Thank you for joining us. I do want to pause one more time to see if anyone has any questions, feedback, or if there's anything that you'd like to know that we could try to answer today.
If you raise your hand virtually, I can allow you to come off mute.
So we have a question in the comments, the chat. Will the state plan include further guidance on ICAPS and WIOA co-enrollment? The current referral guide does not discuss ICAPS. I've only encountered this issue with out-of-school youth definition appearing to differ between Title I and Title II. Can I ask a follow-up clarifying question? When you say the current referral guide, was that the one that was issued at the Workforce Summit by the referral work group?
The one that's currently housed on the WorkNet's partner page?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. We can certainly look at that, although it might be a question of, do those programs federally have different definitions for those. But you're saying so far you've only encountered it with out of school youth appearing to differ between Title I and Title II. I will put that in the notes as something we want to review. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all again. My one request out of this is please review that survey. Take it if you have not, and please distribute it widely within your networks. We really want to get as much feedback as we can around this modification process. Thank you, Antonio.
Absolutely. The recording and all materials will be available within a couple of workdays at the Illinois Workforce Academy, and we will make sure to include that survey in the follow-up email. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.